Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this community showdown between Nurgle and Norsca, Outer Region versus Housecat of War, Kugath versus Wulfrik the Wanderer. So it should be quite a bit of fun. Always a fun time seeing Kugath. This is a very big map, which could be a little bit tricky for him. Kugath usually likes those smaller maps, but even still, he's a great choice. Basically, wherever you put Kugath, he's going to be able to anchor that down for quite some time. There's also another principle of strategy with him, which is kind of the distraction Carnifex from 40k, except he actually does a ton of damage, although I guess Carnifexes do too. But he's got so much HP that you can send him forward, your opponent's going to see a big target, and they're like, oh, I'm going to try and snipe that with javelins, whatever, and all their like damage and focus fire goes into him. You pull him back, you heal him back up to full more or less with Fleshy Abundance and Fecundity, and then the rest of your army is just in great shape, and Kugath is still more or less functional. It's very strong. So main core is going to be Exalted Plague Bearers, which are a good unit. Unholy Hand Grenades give you some nice utility against bigger targets. You know, Nurgle doesn't really have good anti-large, so the Holy Hand Grenades do help you solve that. On top of that, the Exalted Heroes on horseback, these guys can take down a Mammoth for sure. They have pretty good mass, so they can stand toe-to-toe. The Mammoth isn't going to be getting a bonus for its infantry, and they're also quite good against like Marauder Champions, which are super meta. So I really like the double Exalted Hero pick. I always felt like they're a very good unit for Nurgle. So yeah, Plague Bearers and just kind of no Warriors, actually. I was looking for some Nurgle Warriors, but nope, just going to be Plague Bearers. Now for the forces here of Housecat of War, it is going to be Marauder Champions in the front line, one of the best infantry units in the entire game. Insane durability, insane damage output, what's not to love? They have 50 plus weapon strength, actually 50 on the dot. 53 melee defense, and honestly pretty good melee attack as well. Javelin's in the secondary row, and yeah, even though Kugath can sponge that damage, if he sponges it and actually gets finished, for example, Wulfrik's able to use like Hunter of Champions on him, he doesn't get away, maybe there's some magic support, and he goes down, like Nurgle's just straight up gonna lose the game. So there is that paradigm to this matchup. A couple Marauders with great weapons. I do like that he brought a couple of those just in case Nurgle went with like a warrior line, because Nurgle Warriors and Marauder Champions, it would be like kind of wet noodle contest. I think the Marauder Champions would win in a perpetual grind because of their rage mechanic, but even still, having the great weapons to flank them and get that really cost-effective damage could be quite nice. Now, for Kugath, he's pretty cool because he can just sit on an objective, so he can just kind of plop his toilet seat down and, you know, it's really, really tough to get rid of him. So Nurgle, usually what they'll do is they'll send like a really, really tanky infantry off to the side to kind of dissuade you from wanting to go for that with like a flank, and then they just challenge you to a fight in the middle. That's Nurgle 101 right there. Now, on the backside, reinforcements coming in, it is going to be Plague Bearers and Chaos Warriors of Nurgle, so it's going to be a lot of heavy infantry. And for Norsca, looks like Kugath throwing his bombardments here, trying to hit Wulfrik. And did he actually hit Wulfrik? I don't think so. Wulfrik's chilling on his horse. And yeah, Wulfrik's always a great choice. I mean, Seafang's just so good. And that alone can kind of justify bringing him. He's also pretty cheap, so it allows you to go for a more wide, expensive elite army by Norscan standards. So yeah, you use Seafang on top of, I mean, Plague Bearers are a somewhat expensive unit, and it looks like there's going to be a Seafang going down right there. Exalted Plague Bearers would be the ideal target, the secondary row, but it's kind of hard when you're just taking a big look at the battlefield to tell the difference. The Exalted Plague Bearers do have a little banner difference. You can see they have the Death's Head grenade on their flag there, so you can kind of check that out. Now your boy Wulfrik the Wanderer going to be jumping in, shield bashing some of these haggard zombies, and we'll see what he can do with his cool Viking beard as he continues to do battle. But you better watch out. The Exalted Heroes of Nurgle, those guys are basically legendary lords. They're jacked. And honestly, I feel like one of the Exalted Heroes, because they have good armor piercing and Wulfrik doesn't, they might actually be able to beat him in combat. That would be pretty funny. But Exalted Heroes, oh my god, Wulfrik just got handled by those guys. Look at that, he's on the run right now. And now Norsca's moving up and Nurgle's like, come at me, dude, I got the capture weight. We got Kugath, you know, the fun times are happening over here. And it does not seem like there's any Condom Wolves or high mass here. Okay, we do see some Skin Wolves coming across. Skin Wolves would be pretty decent against the Exalted Heroes, because their armor piercing would be somewhat wasted on Skin Wolves who don't really have a ton of armor. Anyways, the battle continues. Kugath throwing his bombardments here, and it looks like he's gotten one of the Marauder Champions pretty low. I really like the maneuvering here from Outer Region. He's able to get those Exalted Heroes away from these Skin Wolves, and now if he wants to, he could attack these Marauder Champions, which I think would be a great play. Looks like the Plague Bearers maybe going to move up and take the fight. Nurgle's just content to collect points and force Norsca to move forward. And man, look at those bombardments doing great work. Now, we do see Marauder Horsemen coming in, one of the few quote-unquote anti-large tools that Nurgle does have. But against Norsca, not bad against their Marauder infantry, more specifically the elite variant. The throwing axes aren't going to be super cost-effective against basic Marauders, but if you can throw those axes into the Marauder Champions and get through their armor, it doesn't hurt. And yeah, they give you some dive as well. They have good melee defense by Marauder Horseman standards at 31, so you can use them to dive on Marauder Hunter Javelins and live your best life. Now, Pit of Shade's going down. Nurgle not very good at dodging, but there were two Plague Bears stacked on top of one another there, and it looks like one of the Plague Bears is going to get caught. The Exalted variant does appear to get away, so that's a bit of a win for Nurgle, but now it comes the hard part. Norsca's infantry are second to none. They're very, very strong. I do feel as if Norsca should try and engage with their infantry where Kugath isn't. Maybe right in the middle is a little bit of a blunder, but like moving the Marauder Champions like up on the outside here and like hammering these guys, maybe these guys, I think would be a good choice. A beautiful Seafang there by Housecat of War. That was really good. Nice cast, goes through 2 units. It hits the Plague Bears. Yeah, 2 Plague Bear units, not bad at all. Now, throwing axes coming in, kind of a strategy you would see in the dwarf matchup is Marauder Hunter spam. So these guys have shield breaker, they of course have good armor piercing, and they will be able to kind of wear down plague bears. They also have that unique arc of fire with the throwing axes that can like go up and over very effectively. So if you have a frontline fighting, throwing axes are very good at supporting compared to like gun units. And javelins I find don't do it quite as well, but they still kind of can since they're like a thrown weapon. And now Nurgle's coming around with a bit of a flank. So we do see Marauder Horsemen as well as Chaos Warhounds. And are these... Oh, I thought they were Famir for a second. I got very excited. But it is going to be Norscan Ice Trolls. Norscan Ice Trolls, their utility here, they'll be okay. Their healing can certainly out-DPS the slower attack rates of the Plague Bears to an extent, although Exalted Plague Bears might be able to kind of grind with them. We see some Houndos moving around and more Exalted Plague Bears moving up while there is an ambush in the trees. So some Marauder Horsemen may be looking to steal that back objective at some point. On the other side, Marauder Champions showing why they're one of the best infantry units in the game as they absolutely dominate some of those Plague Bears right there and move on to the next unit. Nurglings, of course, going to get pops like popcorn by these mighty Viking warriors, and there they go. So they pay the Troll Toll as Kugath now gets hit with Hunter of Champions, and I would wager some Focus Fire wanted to go on him, but it looks like Nurgle's died with the Marauder Horsemen as well as the little Hounds back here, Exalted Hero of Nurgle and Exalted Hero of Nurgle. Man, these guys are just everywhere, jumping right into the two missile formations. And if you're not ahead of Nurgle by like 2,000, 1,500 value, you're kind of losing the game. Because Nurgle has so much healing, and they can really kind of mitigate the values that you're seeing up here in terms of gold damage value dealt. So Mortis Engine effect going down, and it is going to be bumping and draining, and that is super cost effective. A Marauder Champion getting Mortis Engine plus by one of the best Mortis Engines in the game, mind you, because the various Mortis Engine effects, they have different values. Kugath, I think, and the Vampire Count original OG engine do have some of the better ones. And here we do get Condom Wolves chasing down throwing axes. Pretty cost effective for the throwing axes to just kind of kite them. And now we see a little bit of a backfield theft going down as some Nurgle horsemen are harried to the corner of the map by other horsemen. Nurglings being attacked by Condom Wolves, which they would lose that fight, but the Nurglings probably wouldn't do too bad. And now some Exalted Plague Bears have gotten back to the objective, which I think is going to be shutting down this little gambit we're seeing from Norsca of like trying to play around Kugath. Granted, Norsca was able to take the middle back, which was very, very nice, considering many of the Nurgle infantry unsupported against the Norscan infantry just tend to lose the fight. Unless you came in with like Chosen or something. Chosen would be too risky though. I mean, Chosen and Nurgle are badass, but unfortunately in Total War, elite infantry are very susceptible to Pit of Shades, to Sea Fang, to those type of effects. It sucks. I feel like elite infantry should be given more magic resist or something to make them more viable, but again, we don't want them to be oppressive, but even still, I just feel like they need to be, you know, in single player, they're fine, right? Because the AI is a potato. Anyone can figure out how to beat the AI. But when it comes to like, you know, a player is always going to see that optimal, you know, path when you get to the higher levels, and yeah, it just sucks. I just wish elite infantry were a little bit better. Now, on the back objective, it looks like some Warhounds routing across it could come back and potentially threaten it. It looks like they do, so now the objective's going to start flipping. But Norsca's doing a good job playing the objectives. They do have Objective 2, and he does also have Objective 3 down here. Nurgle just moving around with big boy Kugath in the center, continuing to get huge value, and a nice stream of corruption going to be coming down from the lore of Nurgle, which it does go through those throwing axes, and yeah, whopping 13,000 HP is left. Kugath sitting at about 2k, so he hasn't paid for himself yet, but he is well on his way, and he is still a big, thick, chunky threat that needs to be dealt with. So Kugath moving into the middle. Looks like he's going to be continuing to throw his bathwater here over at the Marauder Champions as the Nurglings are dominated by Marauder Champions, so no surprise. Unholy Hand Grenades trying to get the Horsemen, and the Horsemen and the Hounds do have a combined capture weight, which is better than the Plague Bears, and they can maneuver around and continue to capture that objective. So if Nurgle doesn't bring in a second unit to support this, this objective could get flipped, because the Horsemen themselves have 4 and the Hounds have 3, if I'm not mistaken. So, well, they're monstrous? Yeah, so it would be 3. So it would be 7 in total against 5. But it looks like the Holy Hand Grenades. You can see the utility that those things bring for Nurgle. Normally, Nurgle is really abusable, but having those grenades was able to push back the Horsemen and secure that objective for Nurgle, which Nurgle takes a long time to get objectives back. So losing, you know, and losing that would be pretty catastrophic for sure as the game grinds into the later stages. Exalted Hero a little bit trapped up here. He's paying the Troll Toll. Good choice by Norsca, using armor-piercing trolls with pretty high melee attack and frostbite to lock down this already very slow champion, so I would wager he's going to be trying to escape here, as he will eventually lose this fight. The trolls will probably win it. I don't know, though. Their leadership's kind of shaky, so maybe if he's able to focus down a couple troll models, the Exalted Hero might win, and Kugath 100% has Fleshy Abundance, so he could probably cast it over on the Exalted Hero, I would wager. Back here, Chaos Warhounds on the run. Norscan Ice Wolves and Marauders clean up a couple scraps. Back objective looking very secure for Norsca. Nurgle isn't a faction that really backcaps super well. They kind of can. You can use Nurglings out of your Vanguard points, so like these points right here, and you can send Nurglings up through the tree line. But for the most part, it's a little bit of a gimmick. It's not the strongest thing in ye old world here. So Kugath Plaguefather still rolling. Look at him on his giant toilet seat of doom. Just cackling up there, looking very smug. Look at him, man. What a jolly guy he is. But yeah, Mortis Engine in full effect. It's hitting these units. Kugath probably needs to work over here and go after the Balefiend of Shadows, and Nurgle now getting a bit of a second win on the objective, as the Marauders are going to be fighting against Forsaken of Nurgle. Forsaken of Nurgle, one of my favorite units on their roster. They're really, really cool. I hope an Old World comes back, we can get some models like this. for Chaos would be quite cool. I got to collect some Chaos armies too. They'll probably just recycle the Age of Sigmar ones, I would imagine, because they look close enough, right? So I would wager that's going to be the case. But Forsaken of Nurgle are pretty rad in some ways. So they have a little bit less melee attack than some of the other variants. But that's not really the issue. Their weapon strength is still super high, and they actually have okay melee defense, whereas all the other Forsaken are glass cannon. So they're a little bit more sustained in combat, which I think is a nice balance. I think it makes them, in my opinion, my favorite of all the Forsaken units. I really like the Tzeentchian ones, and the Slaanesh ones with Devastating Flanker are very good, but like the easiest to use are probably the Forsaken of Nurgle. The Khorne ones kind of suck. Their melee defense is 16, which is awful, and the Frenzy is a little bit redundant on them, which sucks. So that, like, you're getting Frenzy as one of the perks of their faction, but they already had it, so it's like just basically a lame situation. But back objective here is being threatened, and the Exalted Plague Bearer is not able to get it. So this could turn into a triple cap situation for Nurgle very, very quickly, and I think that's what it's going to be. Nurgle obviously is going to get the middle back, but if they can just keep bouncing around with their mobility and these Flesh Hounds and taking advantage of Nurgle being a bit of a potato, I mean, that is really big. Wulfrik here using his 100 armor to kind of stand up to the Exalted Plague Bearers, and he's tanking it pretty well, although they're getting some damage on him. They're certainly not slouches. The Javelin Fire continuing to pour in. Exalted Plague Bearers getting poked by multiple horsemen, and some Condom Wolves back here regenerating, which is quite good. Up on the objective, Plague Bearers holding it down. Plague Bearers, the Forsaken will absolutely wreck these Marauders if they decide to get the charge on them with their charge bonus of 40. So we'll have to see if they decide to do that, but good micro from Outer Region. He's pulling back the Forsaken to Kugath to get the Mortis Engine support and moving in the Plague Bearers to fight the Great Weapons, avoiding the Great Weapons against his armor. So little plays like that, they can make a big difference, but at the end, he gets caught and he turns around and fights, and will be getting an Alpha Strike. Kugath, of course, does cause terror, so able to get a big route right here on these guys. And now these Marauders aren't going to be long for this world. They're going to get pounded. So the middle objective is going to be firmly in the hands of Nurgle. And if Nurgle can get the 2 objective cap here soon, they'll be able to win on 2 points. And that is going to be an extremely precarious situation here for Housecat of War and Norsca. As getting those points back when Nurgle's ahead of you, they're kind of that inexorable force. It's just like in Tabletop with the Death Guard. Sometimes you get outmaneuvered, but once you get things locked down with all your really tanky dudes, like your Blightlord Terminators and your Plague Brain Blobs, all that good stuff, you know, shit gets pretty real on the board. And it looks like the Exalted Hero coming in for the duel, looking to earn the favor of Nurgle by taking out a Mighty Champion of Chaos. And this is how Chaos does it. They're moving in. Hunter of Champions, the most cowardly Wulfrik in the world. Literally known for being a renowned duel. Oh, I take it back. He turned around to fight. Man, look at that. He must have heard me, man. Well, clearly, that's how Wulfrik would want to go anyways. And it looks like he is going to be fighting to the death. He really made me eat my words right there, as Wulfrik is going to be going down like a true champion of Chaos, not running away from another champion, despite being at a huge disadvantage. And the champion Nurgle is able to rout him there, so good night, sweet prince. Now, Nurgle secures Objective 1. Objective 2 here in the middle is still owned by Norsca. Norsca does have its Marauder Champions and some Marauder Great Weapons right here. Currently, Nurgle would win on 2 objectives. It's getting to the danger zone, though. They got to be really, really careful and not let this back objective get capped once again. Honestly, just to be safe, probably leaving a Plague Bearer Nurgling and unsummoning this Nurgling and resummoning it to protect this objective would be the play. So the Exalted Champion chasing down Wulfrik right here with 240 HP. That's going to be applying a leadership penalty to the entire Norscan army. So you can see their leadership right now is at 67. Frightened by enemy units. Friends are routing, but it's going to get much worse once Wulfrik gets routed off the battlefield, which is how it should be. I know I harp on that quite a bit, but I hope CA does take note and changes that, although I don't really know if they watch these. But here we do see the -8 leadership. I'm waiting to see the modifier come into play. Good capture weight, Marauder Champions showing what they're made of here as they do rumble in the middle, but Kugath gets a huge explosion on them. Their leadership immediately tanks down to 23 as soon as Wulfrik goes off the battlefield, so Lord Recently Fled is -16, but it eventually will go down to -10. There's like an immediate shock penalty, which is 16, but then it scales down to 10 once the battle progresses. So, yeah, it's pretty good stuff. Middle objective flipping for Nurgle, back objective flipping for Nurgle as well. We got the Marauder Horsemen going to get attacked by some good boys of Norsca here. And Marauders of Nurgle, no Horsemen, they should be able to fight these guys off. I think 2v1, if they surround them and charge them with Fleshhound or with the Hound support, they'll be pretty good. I mean, they're all Fleshhounds, technically speaking. So nice charge right there. Marauder Horsemen and Nurgle going to get a rear charge. Hound's known for having pretty bad leadership, and honestly, I think that's GG. I don't think there's any comeback, and really, really nice performance. The Exalted Heroes plus Kugath. The Exalted Heroes are super clutch. They bullied Wulfrik really, really hard. And obviously Kugath was a raid boss as always. I think he's hands down the best Lord on the roster. You can't really go for Festus in this matchup. If you do, Festus gets bullied by Wulfrik. Wulfrik will just chase him down and kill him. And there's not, like, you can kind of protect him, but it's more work than it's worth for sure. So looks like that's probably going to be GG, I would wager. We'll watch and see if there's any comeback on the horizon, but I simply don't think so, because now Nurgle would win pretty comfortably on 2 objectives. Not comfortably, but it'd be close. And that is going to be the towel thrown in there by Norsca. So well played to both players. Always fun to see a champion of Nurgle out there playing in tournaments and doing well. So shout out to Outer Region, as well as the Housecat of War for putting up a great fight and putting on a good game for us. So 4,000 value on the big man, 1,100, 1,300. I love it. good times for all, and everybody here performed pretty well. And yeah, Marauder, despite running into more dissensions and having rough fights, like a couple of these guys still got 1,000, and it was a good game. It was a very, very fun match. Got to see some trolls too. All right, guys, see you on the other side. Take care of yourselves. That's it for today. And that's it. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to say. Podcast coming soon, by the way. Going to be starting up the Total War kind of RTS podcast again. So that'll be coming soon. Cheers.